do it.
Let's do it. So here we are, our inaugural Workforce Nerds video cast. Is that the right word for this?
Video podcast?
I keep saying, is it a vlog? Is it a video cast? Is it a podcast?
All the above.
I don't know.
Welcome to the Workforce Nerds podcast.
Video cast.
Yeah, video cast. All right. What is this about? What are we doing here?
Why did we start this?
Why did we start this?
We started this, I think, because you and I were chatting, and we had talked to a lot of other workforce development professionals throughout the state of Washington and the nation, and they'd always said, hey, be cool if we had our own podcast. You have podcasts for everything, talking about, various items, and someone said, there's not really anything dedicated to workforce development, which isn't entirely true. There are some organizations out there who've done podcasts, but specifically, I think for us, right, we really attached ourselves as Workforce Nerds thing.
We are the Workforce Nerds.
And we wanted to say, hey, you know what? We want a platform where we can have discussions with other like-minded workforce nerds.
Yep. Yeah, we wanted to highlight what happens in our industry and in our community. And we wanted opportunity also to expand on some of the news segments that we do. We only get 2 to 3 minutes on the news, and we wanted to spend 10 or 15 minutes with our guests and sometimes with each other and talk about issues that are relevant in our community. So why are we Workforce Nerds?
That is a great question.
It
why
is.
Are Workforce? Initially, when I came up with the name Workforce
When
Nerds.
I came up with it.
When the name Workforce Nerds first came up.
The ongoing debate.
It's ongoing debate. I thought the other day, after we decided to do this podcast, and realized that I think it was you. And I'll explain why. Initially, when you said something about being a workforce nerd, you gave me the moniker of, oh, congratulations, you have joined, the catalog of being a workforce
I think I said you drank the Workforce Nerd Kool-Aid.
It was something like that.
Yeah.
And I remember actually taking at first a little bit of offense to that.
Oh.
Thanks to the word nerd
Oh.
in general, that I think has this bad connotation with some folks, but then realizing that it was actually a term of endearment. And so, when you say, what is a workforce nerd, I think it's just anybody who's like-minded, who if you, geek out over workforce development, economic development, anything that
careers,
ties people, jobs, training, education, all of that, which I know is a huge swath. I think that you qualify as a workforce nerd if you're going home at night and being like, I'm jazzed up about all this.
And we definitely are. What is the nerdiest thing you've ever done related to workforce development?
Nerdiest thing.
Nerdiest
thing I've ever done related to workforce development.
Watching that video before your interview.
I did, yeah. So when I first got into workforce development about 6 or 7 years ago, I didn't know anything. Coming from the healthcare industry I didn't know anything about WIOA. I didn't even pronounce it like that. I forget how I even pronounced it.
So the federal law.
The federal law,
workforce law.
WIOA, WIOA. And I was actually sitting in my truck going in for the interview for the position as the one-stop operator here for our American Job Center. And I was watching like a 35-minute video that was created by somebody on YouTube about, and I was like, how am I going to ever answer
You did good.
any of these questions about WIOA? I even threw in, pronounced it differently, because I've heard it pronounced different ways throughout the U.S., but pronounced it differently than here in Washington State during the interview.
Sure.
But at least I tossed it in.
You did. You did.
I got it in the interview.
I'll tell you my nerdiest thing. You've heard this story, I'm sure, but before I had access to a labor market economist, I would count the job listings in our local paper, the Spokesman Review, every Sunday. And I count them by industry and total. The paper did not provide a total count. So we couldn't access job postings on the internet then, and we didn't have access to labor market economist. But I'd count them and track them weekly so I could determine for myself if the industry or the economy, local economy was growing or shrinking. So that's pretty nerdy.
That's pretty nerdy.
That's pretty nerdy.
Put that right up there.
Yeah, it's pretty nerdy.
Tell somebody, what'd you do on Saturday, and you said that.
Sunday, but yeah.
That makes it better. That entirely makes it better. Yeah. Yeah, I realized I was a full-blown workforce nerd when I was trying to, family friends, and they were like, how's the job go? People say that after you get hired in a job. I've been in for several months. Hey, how you like that job? And I was like, oh, I'm so pumped up. We were in the middle of doing integrated service delivery. I started laying out all this stuff about what we were doing. And
They walk away
you
from
recognize you got that look like, oh, God, I picked the wrong guy at the holiday party to sit next to eat hors d'oeuvres. And so.
So how do we make that interesting for our viewers and our guests?
Yeah, I think we're working right now on a content calendar of getting a number of guests who feel the same way. Who are going to be able to bring a lot of great information, I think, to our community. And I don't think it's going to be obviously very Spokane specific in some areas, but I think the information is going to be able to be looked at nationally about how things are being done here locally, but how maybe you could interweave that with the system delivery that you have. And I think it's great. We're venturing out. We're going to have guests that are like not right here on our own American Job Center campus. We're going to have guests involved just within our network of other individuals who do workforce and economic development.
Yeah, we're going to be promoting local employers, internship opportunities, career opportunities, ways for families to financially, stabilize and how people can earn some money. And I don't know, that sounds cool to me.
It does. And I hate to shoo away potential listeners, watchers, whatever it is, but if you're here to hear 15 or 30 minutes of boring talk about the economy.
This is not it. This is not it.
And things like that. Not to say we won't have some data involved. I mean, I think that's the basis of a lot of what we'll be discussing is looking at the data. But we're here to have fun, too. We want to make this fun. Workforce development is an extraordinarily fun career to be in. A lot going on, and I hope that we're able to reflect that over the various podcasts that we have, which won't just be Don and I sitting here talking to each other. Like we said, we'll have one or the other of us will host with a different individual or individuals as we move forward with this podcast.
All right. Close it out. Why do you love workforce development?
Why do I love workforce development? I think that workforce development, and I'll put it in relation to my former world in healthcare, right? You really felt like you were doing something where you helped individuals. You could really get into it. Yes, absolutely. Sometimes overwhelming. Sometimes feels like a vicious circle. Probably shouldn't use the word vicious, but everybody gets what I'm saying, of where you're dependent on the work that you do. But at the same time, at the end of the day, you're really doing something that is so amazing. I mean, those one-on-one things that individuals who are out there who are career coaches or working with businesses, they get to see the change that they made more immediately. And even for those who are in leadership positions, I mean, the fact of leading teams that do this type of work, I think it's just exciting. I think all careers have their uniqueness, but I think workforce development is just one at the end of the day that it's easy to drive home and say, wow, we're really doing something and impacting in a positive way.
I agree. I love it because a job means so much to each of us in American society. And every time you see somebody sort of, land their next big job, you can see the pride on their face and you know that it's going to change their life and their family's life. And I love seeing that smile and knowing that they're giving back to our community and their lives can be better.
Well said. Well said.
All right, Workforce Nerd.
Workforce Nerds. We'll see you in the next episode.